Hello and welcome to the TEAS information session provided by Hack Tutoring. My name is Kathy Passwark, Tutoring Coordinator for our Gettysburg location, and this video will provide you with an overview of the TEAS, including TEAS test sections, content and subcontent, the number of scored questions and percent of questions, time allowances in each question. We'll review some test preparation strategies and some resources available to help you prepare and discuss the current remote and in-person proctoring. I did highlight or bold the word scored, and I wanted to just mention quickly, when you hear the number of questions for each section, some students have come back to us and said, I had more questions than that. What ATI does, ATI is the administrator of the TEAS tests, is they test out some sample questions like any standardized testing company does. And so you will receive some questions that aren't scored. They're sort of trial questions. They're kind of trying out. And so you won't know which ones are which, but you will have some additional questions that aren't scored. So we'll be focusing on how many scored questions. As you may have heard, the TEAS 7 is a new version of the TEAS, which was updated and brought into effect as of June of 2022. As far as Hack is concerned, for the 2022 application cycle, either the version 6, which was the previous version, or version 7, the current version, will be accepted. Beginning in the fall of 2023, only version 7 tests will be accepted for Hack. Formerly, the test was all multiple choice. Now you will see some multiple choice, but also multiple select. So not just one correct answer, but possibly multiple. Fill in the blank questions, hotspot questions, which are basically a diagram or picture, and you will need to click on the appropriate spot as your answer on the picture or diagram, and then ordered response. So put things in order as far as 1 to 4, something like that. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about the TEAS test sections. They are in this order: reading, math, science, and English. The reading section is comprised of 39 scored questions. That is 26% of the total test questions, and you're allowed 55 minutes to complete that section. The subcategories, as you can see, are key ideas and details, craft and structure, and integration of knowledge and ideas. When we talk about the time allowance for each section, this is a great time to encourage all of you to take your time with the TEAS. Please do not rush through this test and use the time that is given to you. You will have the ability, if a question is confusing to you, to review it and look back at it before you go on to the next section. At the end of the reading section, it'll say you finished all these questions or answered all of them. Are you ready to move on to the next section, the math? If you want to review any questions, that is the time to go back and do that. You will have the ability to flag a question. And so basically you'll just click, puts a flag up next to that question. I do recommend that you answer all the questions the first time through, but if something is confusing to you and you want to return to it, if you have time, you can flag it and return to that question. And it could be when you take a second look at a question, it will be more clear to you. So keep that in mind. Okay, the second section is the math. That is 34 scored questions, 23% of the total test questions, and you're allowed 57 minutes to complete this section. The subcategories are numbers and algebra and measurement and data. A calculator is built into the system. It's sort of a drop down that you can use at any time during the test, but definitely for this math section. You will not have a handheld calculator. You won't be able to use your phone as a calculator or anything like that. For this section and for all of the TEAS, you will have a piece of scratch paper, and we encourage you to bring a pen or pencil. And if it's helpful for you at all to do any work on that scratch paper, you can do so. There is an optional break built into the system in between the first two sections, and the second two sections is an optimum time to take that break, but you can really take it at any time in between any of the sections. It's 10 minutes, can allow you a nice amount of time to stretch, to move, to use the restroom, to get a drink of water, or anything that you might need during that time. Don't take more than that 10 minutes, and certainly don't take a break during one of the sections, but it might not be a bad idea since the total time you're taking the TEAS, the time that you're allowed is 209 minutes, which is over 3 hours. So that's a long time to sit. For students who are taking the TEAS remotely, you will be monitored by a Proctorio artificial intelligence software as your proctor. You will need to show your photo ID to your camera on your computer at the beginning and scan your room to make sure there's no way of you getting answers from any other means. And if you take a break and come back into the room, you will need to do that a second time. It doesn't take long. It shouldn't deter you from, taking the break, but I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. The final two sections of the TEAS then will be science, 44 scored questions, 29% of test questions, and a time allowance of 60 minutes. Those subcategories are human anatomy and physiology, biology, chemistry, and scientific reasoning. So if any of these areas are not familiar to you, I know chemistry for some students, they haven't taken that in a long time, they haven't reviewed the periodic table, that would definitely be an area you would want to review before taking the TEAS. And then the final section is the English and language use. 33 scored questions, 22% of the total test questions with a time allowance of 37 minutes. But I encourage you to take your time. Don't rush through this final section, and just do your best and power through it. The subcategories there are conventions of standard English, knowledge of language, and using language and vocabulary to express ideas in writing. So those are the 4 sections. As you prepare for the TEAS, we like you to keep this graphic in mind. Perhaps some of you are familiar with this healthcare process idea, the idea that for a healthcare provider, you assess a patient, you analyze what's going on with their condition, you create a plan of care, implement that plan, evaluate how the patient is doing with that plan of care, and then kind of make that a continual process. We can compare this with how you might prepare for the TEAS, assessing and analyzing what you know about the TEAS test, your personal areas of strength and weakness, and the resources and strategies available to help you do your best. The TEAS stands for the Test of Essential Academic Skills, administered through ATI Nursing Education. It has those 4 sections as we talked about, 170 questions total, and that time allowance, as I mentioned earlier, of 209 minutes, which is roughly 3.4 hours. Then, as far as your planning, you might look at the time frame you have available, whether you're taking the TEAS in 2 weeks, 2 months, or more. An optimum amount of time, I would say, would be a couple of months to really get some strong study time in, but it could be your time and difference is different than that. I do encourage very regular, hopefully even daily, study of TEAS materials. And you should identify resources that can help you. There are numerous Facebook groups out there, YouTube videos, groups that you can join. And I would really encourage you to make a very specific, detailed study plan. Then implementing that plan. You will want to look at some different resources. Feel free to take a screenshot of this page. These are resources that HAC employees as well as HAC students have identified as really helpful things to help you in your study. So we don't encourage you to purchase everything on this list or to spend hundreds of dollars on TEAS preparation materials. You really don't have to spend a lot. You will want to check out HAC's library resources because some of these resources might be available to you free, whether a physical book or copy or an electronic copy of any of these resources. So some of these are books that you could buy either new or used online. Some of them are free apps. Obviously, YouTube is a free resource that you can watch some of those videos that are available to you. So identify the resources that you're going to use and then start studying. There are even some YouTube videos that describe how students created a study plan and implemented that. So you might want to check that out as well. The final bullet on this slide is the invitation to join the HACK TEAS study group. That is a group that meets weekly. It's led by HACK tutors. And basically that group just comes together via Zoom and reviews sample questions, strategizes about answers to those questions, and then discusses why an answer might be right or wrong based on that. They focus on a different section of the TEAS each week. So they would start with reading, then go on to math and so forth, and then kind of go through that periodically. And then evaluate. Maybe you've been studying for a while, you take a practice test and you realize that your score is really good in reading. Put that reading section aside and maybe focus on the sections, perhaps math and science, that aren't going as well, and really focus your study on those areas. And then when you look ahead to actually scheduling your TEAS test, definitely look at your full calendar, what you have going on. Maybe you're in the midst of a semester and you know you have a crazy week during midterms. Don't schedule your TEAS for that week or the following week. Definitely look at all those factors in your planning. And now we'd like to just take a minute to talk a little bit about metacognition, and that is the idea of thinking about your own thinking and learning and reflecting on that. You might think back to a class that you did really well in, that you were able to really learn the material to the nth degree. You really felt good about your performance in that class. What did you do in that class that helped you to do that? Was it the fact that you created a lot of note cards? Was it that you had a study group and a study partner that you kind of worked with periodically? Whatever that is, you might want to put that into place for your TEAS preparation. And then registering to take the TEAS. The information on this slide is all taken directly from the HACK website. I really encourage you to look at our website, to read it, to find all the resources that you need and the information that will help you to go through this process as smoothly as possible. But it's highlighted here as well. So you, in order to register to take the TEAS, will go to the atitesting.com website. You will create an account, and you can go ahead and do that without paying anything, just to kind of get that account made, look at the dates that are available, familiarize yourself with their website. Once you're ready to actually register for the TEAS, it is about $96 at the time of this recording plus tax, so it's not an inexpensive test. That's why we encourage students to really study and do the best that they can the very first time that they take the TEAS, and don't have to take the TEAS multiple times to achieve the score that they need or desire. So we offer the TEAS in person at our Gettysburg, Harrisburg, Lancaster, and York locations. Let's say you're a York student, but you're planning to do your clinical at the Gettysburg location. You still could take your TEAS test at Harrisburg, at Lancaster, at any of our campuses. So please just choose a time and date that works best for you. We are, as of this recording, offering the TEAS both on campus in person as well as remotely. So please keep in mind that you have different options as far as that's concerned. And then student check-in on test day. Like with any test, you don't want to be running into the room or logging into your computer at the total last minute. That really adds some stress and that kind of thing. So definitely plan ahead to be ready to start the test maybe at least 15 minutes before test time. You will need to show a current photo ID, and you will need to know that ATI login username and password that you have created when you created your ATI account. As I mentioned previously, you'll have a piece of scratch paper, definitely want a pencil. You won't be able to have any personal items with you as you take the test, as far as a phone, snacks, drinks, any of that kind of thing. You will see your results as soon as you finish the TEAS. So it's not that you have to wait for those results at all. You will know right away. And then on test day, we definitely encourage you to sleep and eat well, maybe take it easy on the caffeine, the carbs, and the sugar, and be prepared as far as login info and all of that kind of thing. If you are taking the TEAS remotely from a different location, definitely eliminate distractions and make sure you have good Wi-Fi in the spot where you're taking the TEAS. You might want to do some deep, slow breathing to establish a calm mode. And then as you're testing, definitely make sure you're reading directions and answering options carefully. Pace yourself and don't rush. Please answer all questions. Guess if you have to. Don't leave anything blank. And remember that flagging option is available to you. We do sometimes encourage students to do something called a brain dump, and that is if you are nervous that you're going to forget a formula or any of the information that you were studying at the last minute, you can use that scratch paper that's available to you to jot that information down as soon as you go to start taking the test. And that can be very anxiety relieving for some students to know that that information is there, it's down on paper, it's available to you. And then just some basic advising information and tips. Please keep in mind that HACC will take your highest composite one-day test score. We definitely encourage you not to apply until you've achieved the score that you want. You do have the ability to retest, and that's a great conversation to have with your advisor as far as planning out when you're going to test. If you want to test early, to make sure that there is time to retest if you don't achieve the score that you want. We really don't have the ability to monitor how many times people take a test, but we recommend that you wait 45 days between tests, at least 2 weeks, to give you time to study so that you can do better the second time. As we've said, the test is not cheap, $96 plus tax, so to take it many times can get very expensive. Again, a recommendation, not a rule, that students really shouldn't take the test more than 3 times in an application period, which is a year. And then if you have taken the TEAS and want to review your scores so that you can remediate real specifically, ATI gives you a great report. You'll click on My Results. You will click on here where it says Show All Topics to Review, and it will show you the 4 areas. Your topics to review, percentages for this particular student. Then if they clicked on reading, it would show this detailed report. And if they clicked on science, another detailed report. This one we kind of highlighted, the blue arrows indicate gastrointestinal system. This student got 3 questions wrong related to that, and that is a good indication that that would be a great area of remediation for this particular student. And then the question that is often asked, what happens if I don't get accepted into clinical? This is a great conversation to have with your advisor. Maybe talk with someone in our career services office, look at different program options that HACC has available to you, and know that there are definitely other options available to you moving forward. And then just to wrap things up, I wanted to provide my name and contact information. Again, Kathy Passwark, tutoring coordinator, Gettysburg location. My number's listed there, as well as my email address. If there was something that I didn't answer that you have any questions about, please feel free to reach out to me. Thanks for watching.